So my brother was like, okay, coffee waste, let's try and create something with that, but didn't know what that product might be. We want our products to feel empowering, positive, and to inspire confidence. Don't stop. We never rest on our laurels. We don't look at our range and think, okay, yeah, done. It's never done.
Hello, Greaterverse listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Greaterverse. For those of you who haven't listened before, I am your host, Anna Kruk, and as always, it is my absolute pleasure to bring to you stories of incredible people doing incredible things to make this universe a greater place. I am really excited today to be speaking to Anna from UpCircle Beauty. UpCircle Beauty, co-founded by brother-sister duo Anna and Will, is an amazing brand that truly has people and planet at its core, but not in the way you might expect. UpCircle takes ingredients that would otherwise be thrown out and have repurposed them into skin, body, and hair care products that are not only good for the world, but are genuinely good products, as supported by the fact that they have the most amazingly loyal customers and that they now retail in over 55 countries. This podcast is about turning trash into treasure, listening to your customers, building communities, and your morning cup of coffee. Please join me in welcoming Anna from UpCircle. Anna, thank you for joining me on the Greaterverse today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
When I came across UpCircle Beauty, it was just such an original concept. I was really curious to understand how you even came up with the idea in the first place.
Yeah, so basically the story of how it all began was, if you kind of paint the picture of myself being 22 years old, so very young, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I'd had a series of short-term jobs in a whole range of things, from property to fashion PR, to then landing a big grad scheme where I was working for a big supermarket, running multiple stores and getting more of an indication into warehousing and merchandising and stuff like that. My brother, who is the co-founder of UpCircle, is kind of the business-minded, more natural entrepreneur, I would say. He was working in the city in finance, always wanted to have his own business, and would go to the same cafe every morning to get a cup of coffee on the way to work. He asked the barista, what happens to all the coffee grounds that you tap out with each cup of coffee that you make? And was really shocked when the guy told him that they have to pay the local council to have these coffee grounds disposed of at landfill. So all of a sudden he thought, gosh, I would never have known that. I would never have thought that that was something that you have to do as an independent. This wasn't a massive chain. So I said, well, just hypothetically, how would you feel if we started taking your coffee grounds away instead? And the guy said, well, yeah, sure, that would be beneficial to us because we then make this saving. So my brother was like, okay, coffee waste, let's try and create something with that, but didn't know what that product might be. That's kind of where I came in. One of my potential dream jobs as a teenager was to be a makeup artist, and I had a keen interest therefore in skincare. And I knew that coffee was fantastic for your skin. This was also at the same time that the microbead scandal was happening, where people were waking up to the realization that toothpastes, exfoliators, all of those sorts of household products were filled with hundreds of these tiny plastic balls. Now, fortunately, they are banned pretty much across the board, but people were looking for the first time really towards natural alternatives, things like coffee, rice, sugar, salt. And so combining those two things, I thought, well, let's take this coffee and let's turn it into a natural upcycled skincare product. And that's kind of where it all began, really. And that was our first coffee shop partner 10 years ago.
I think that's absolutely ingenious. Like when I was reading all about UpCircle, I couldn't believe that you used coffee. I mean, your brother was a lot more observant than me because I'd never actually thought about what happened to that. But the fact that both you and him were able to come up with something that combined those two, I just think is phenomenal. I'd love to understand how you started with your original product and and the name?
The original idea was the idea we had, and the obvious product to make with physical coffee grounds is an exfoliator because of the natural texture that it has. But it is quite funny knowing what we now know, that the signature product within our range was one that you don't use every day. And it was also at that time one that you use on your body. Now we know that customers spend the most money on their face, not their body. And our best sellers will be products that people are using once, if not twice a day. Uh, so we were in a position as, true entrepreneurs figuring it out as we went along, that we were having to deal with our limited resources with what was kind of landing on our laps. And so first was a scrub, then came a soap, then we did a facial oil, which remains one of our best sellers. But then it took off incredibly quickly for us because without realizing it, on one weekend at it was called the London Coffee Festival, we had met a buyer for, it was Urban Outfitters, who wanted to launch our range before we even had um, packaging. So again, we were just in this position where we had to very quickly make things retail ready and go for it. So yeah, I would say it was like around the 3-year mark that we were able to properly strategize what are our products that are going to sell quickly, as opposed to the products that we had to market or launch because of the ingredients that we had. So we actually started off with a different brand name, which just shows that we didn't know what we were doing. And we went on Dragon's Den and had to present this original brand name as well. And it's so funny because all the criticism that we got from the Dragons, it did go very, very well for us overall, but they hated the name. And we knew this by this point. So the original name was OPTIAT, which was an acronym which stood for one person's trash is another's treasure. So many issues with it. The issues are, of course, that let's say you're selling an eye cream or a lip balm, you've got a tiny product and a lot to say. If you're having to explain the name on the front of the pack, then you've run out of space to talk about the product itself. And one person's trash is another's treasure is a lot of words. It's also got the word trash in it. And the whole point of what we're doing is trying to say that these ingredients are not trash. So after 2 years of learning, we decided to rebrand. And it was during that time that we thought, okay, well, we're going to change the visual aesthetic and the hierarchy of our messaging, and we need to change the name as well. And UpCircle, it's tough to find untrademarked names at this point, I admit. There were lots of options that we looked at. They were all taken. But UpCircle, we were like, okay, that really works because it sums up the 3 core concepts of circular economy, upcycling, and the uplifting environmental message and tone of voice that we aim to have as a brand. We're not a brand that will bombard you with doom and gloom headlines about how terrible the state of the world is and how much plastic is in the oceans, etc. We want to take an encouraging tone that makes people feel good about picking up our product as opposed to somebody else's, rather than saying, you should buy this because if you don't, we're all going to burn and die. It's not feel good. So that's the 3 kind of concepts that we thought that the brand name quite nicely tied together. And that's what the original brand name couldn't achieve.
I think having that positive story positioning is really different because in the cosmetic and beauty industry, so much of it is focused on there's something wrong with you that you need to improve. Like, oh, you don't want fine lines and wrinkles because that makes you look old, or you have this kind of skin texture, you need to fix it. And so I love the idea of a brand that is focused on the positives and building that from a place of joy and hope.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely essential. And again, being a young woman when I started the brand, I think that the beauty industry that I knew growing up was one that made the majority of my friends feel worse about themselves, not better. But if I was going to enter the beauty industry and be putting out products, then absolutely no way was I going to be willing to contribute to that kind of vibe. And we are so careful. I mean, in the early days, we hired just friends and family to be models because that's all that we could afford. And then now, we can get official models, but they are of all, let's just say, shapes, sizes, ages. We want to be an inclusive brand that is community led. And therefore, anything that we're putting out that's visual needs to represent the people that are purchasing the products. You want the person in the imagery on the website to look like you. Similarly, the words that we use are so, so important. And that's, yeah, the eco side. But as you've mentioned, it's not, oh my goodness, you're uh, experiencing the menopause, therefore you have to buy X, Y, and Z. We keep gender out of all conversation. Our products for anyone and everyone. And the other thing we work so hard to do is to formulate products that can be used by anybody. And that's a careful balancing act. We try to create very balanced formulas that are suitable for all. We want our products to feel empowering, positive, and to inspire confidence. And that's probably one of the biggest responsibilities I think you have as a brand operating in the beauty industry, is to get that right and to make sure that you are being inclusive and yeah, empowering.
You're not just investing in product, you're actually investing in people. And I think you've identified the fact that, if consumers can buy a product, feel good about it, but the product is fantastic at what it does, then it's like the perfect combination. I just wanted to pick up on one of the things that you said about your process of you select products provided they have a skin or hair care benefit. So what's the actual process?
Yeah, so I think when we first started out, it was incredibly manual, because really upcycling wasn't a concept that the industry was that familiar with. They hadn't adopted it. And so if I look back at maybe the first 5 upcycled ingredients that we started working with, it was really kind of startup-y in the approach. It was us figuring it out. One of the first things that we did as London-based brand was outsource manufacturing and product development. So our formulator is just absolutely incredible and was so on board with what we were trying to achieve in the industry and doing something forward thinking and pushing boundaries, that there was no idea that we would put to them that was too crazy. So, for example, we started working with mulch of chai spices that have been used to brew chai syrups. And when I received this from this other small brand, it was in that form, like bags of mulch. And I said, okay, well, this is what I've got. It smells incredible. Can you go away and sort of experiment? And it's such a fun process. It's another person's job that I'm quite jealous of, to go and think, okay, well, this is the scent of the product. This is the texture of the product. This is the benefits of this ingredient. What can we pair that with? So it's really a matchmaking process of what products do we want to add to our range? What ingredients that we have upcycled do we have in our portfolio? And how can we pair those two together?
When I go to a cafe and when I do anything, I think I'll be looking at it being like, oh, I wonder if this is something that Anna and the team might be able to put into a product. Like it must be such a creatively satisfying process.
I go, whatever I'm doing, I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Maybe we can use that. It's hard to switch off.
And I understand that you work with lots of different sort of waste ingredients now. What are some of the other ingredients that you work with as well?
Yeah, so we're up at about, I think, with our new product launches for this year, where we have another 9 ingredients being added to the portfolio, we're around 60 different upcycled ingredients that come from all over the world and from all sorts of different industries, but primarily the food and drinks industry. And they vary a lot. So you've got upcycled ingredients that come in like a powder form. So an example of that would be upcycled argan shells. We've got olive stone powder, so literally the stones from olives, which are a byproduct of making olive oil. We've got apricot stone powder. Then we've got extracts, so oils, things like orange peel extract. And we've got coffee extract as well. So we extract the oil from the coffee grounds so that we can use it in multiple different formats. Then we've got the equivalent of waters, because so many skincare products are made up almost entirely of water. And that water is heavily filtered and purified, which in itself is quite environmentally costly. So we look to the juicing industry to take the water that they evaporate from fruit juice in order to make juice concentrates. And we use that in a lot of products that have a high water content. So think of things like a lotion, a wash, toners, serums. And so we use a kiwi water, bergamot water, green mandarin water, all sorts. plus many, many more. There's a huge variety now, from physical textures to oils, powders, and whatever really that we can get our hands on. The great thing, I think, is about the growth that we've had over the years is that, we were completely unheard of at the start, but now we have businesses and individuals coming to us saying, well, I make X product, it leaves behind Y. Is there something that you can do with that? And so long as we can prove that it has a skincare or hair care benefit, then we'll put in the work to try to make that happen.
It's phenomenal. And I was going to ask you, because the products that you've mentioned, or all of the waste products, sound quite beautiful. Are there any more weird and wonderful ones that you use that might not be expected?
Yeah, I think so. I think perhaps maple bark extract, which is a byproduct of the furniture industry, is one that you might not expect. We upcycle that into our eye cream, and it looks like a thick, dark treacle. And that's a bit more, abstract. You think bark of a tree, that's unusual. But, think of what bark does for a tree. It's this protective outer seal that helps the water grow up into the rest of the plant, the yeah, it is a plant. Um, and it has the exact same properties for skincare. So if you think of the skin around your eyes, it's thin, it's delicate, and it needs to be a very gentle and protective ingredient. So finding this rich extract, um, we thought an eye cream would be the perfect combination. And our eye cream is our best selling product. So that's an example of a slightly more, you wouldn't expect it or unusual story behind one of the products that we have. If you think about their original life and what their function was in their original life, and then what their function ends up being in the products that we create from them, it's one of my favorite parts about my specific role of the brand, which is to be the storyteller. And it's a complete luxury that we have when it comes to marketing a new product. That not only am I saying, okay, I think that you should buy this product because it will do X, Y, or Z for your skin or hair. We have this whole story, this whole, root of an amazing provenance that we can talk about, which is so creative and beautiful. And it's nice to have so much to say.
Can you share a little bit about the eco packaging that you use?
I think that what we are most known for is obviously the upcycling of the ingredients and making sure that what goes inside the packaging is the best that it can be. But if I'm completely honest, the bigger issue within our industry is the packaging and what the ingredients are surrounded by. Because if you think about hygiene and the size of the products for cosmetics, they're often small and they require mixed materials. We've chosen glass and aluminium as our two materials for the vast majority of our range, because they can be recycled over and over. Aluminium, for example, without it degrading in quality, whereas plastic it degrades with each time it's recycled. And they are two materials that are recycled curbside globally. You don't have to take it to a specialist recycling facility. You don't need to take it to your biggest grocery store or whatever in order that it's recycled. For the consumer, they have the most limited amount of effort that they need to take for that material to stay in the system. So we can say that our packaging is 99% plastic free, and then we have plastic free refill options for the 1%. Looking at compostable options, biodegradable options, plastic free options. But the issue is the water loss through the barrier. So it's really difficult, but we are working really hard on it. And if we can crack it and commission, we're working with a research and development company on a bespoke project to try to make this work. And if we can crack it, then it will be a first to market. It's a shame that we're the smaller brand who are budgeting for this and pushing it forwards, that then inevitably, if we succeed, the big brands will hop on our hard work. But someone has to do it, and it's important to us. So it's probably one of our biggest, if not our biggest goal for the year ahead, is to figure out a global refill solution for our packaging. But in the meantime, our packaging is great. It's still some of the best out there, and we focus on minimizing the amount of plastic that we use and using materials that are easy to recycle from home.
Why do you think it is important that people are responsible in their use of beauty and cosmetic products and hair care products?
I think this is an interesting question, because I'm slightly of the opinion that the consumer gets blamed a lot for the choices that they make. And actually, the example should be being led from the top. Um, in an ideal world, there wouldn't be an option available for a consumer to choose that isn't responsible. Particularly if you take everything that's going on in the world, um, it's, people don't have huge amounts of money to spend necessarily on choosing the most ethical product, and therefore shouldn't be berated for sometimes choosing the less good option, right? Whether the less responsible option. I think that the onus should be on the brands to produce products that are already responsible so that the consumer doesn't have to have this battle between having enough money to buy food and buying a moisturizer that gives back to the planet. So I think that's why I personally think it's responsible. It's important that we, as the brand, are responsible. I think all brands should take that same approach because we shouldn't really be having products that are damaging for people or planet available for purchase. And it's not the consumer, in my opinion's responsibility. It's the brands. And that's, in a nutshell, I think, why it's important that we're responsible and putting out responsible products.
I think everything that you say is a really great perspective, that it's not just on the consumer, but the broader industry needs to take responsibility for what they put out there in the market and what is available for people to buy. Is it like working with your brother? Because I think so many people find it difficult working with family. You've already said that you're quite different personalities, so how do you make it work?
I think we've got better over the years. I think it was the most challenging after about year 3 to 4, where we'd been a team of two for the first couple of years. It was just me and him, and we did everything, to packing every single order and all the rest of it. We did the whole lot, collecting the coffee on the weekends. And now we're in a position where we have a team of nearly 30 people, and we can focus on our strengths, and therefore there's not much overlap. I have complete trust in what he's doing, and that's the best for the business and the people that he's managing, and vice versa. We know that we can't do what the other one does. My brother would be useless on a podcast. I would be useless at figuring out profit margins and negotiating payment terms. But also, I think our team find it hilarious. I think they love having siblings as the kind of bosses per se. We have a very young team, average age of 27, and they banter us relentlessly. They play us off against each other. We don't mind having a bit of a scrap in the office. It doesn't happen often, but often it's like egged on by the team. We've played into it for April Fool's jokes. We did a hilarious April Fool's a year back, a few years ago, where we staged a fight in a meeting, which was like being secretly filmed. But of course, we came up with the whole thing where my brother was like flipping a table and shouting at me, and we had this huge family row, which was completely made up. And then we said that we were splitting the company into Up and Circle, and each of the team had to choose a sibling for these two new. It was absolutely ridiculous. But again, it's like, well, let's play with this. Let's have fun. Let's not be too uppity. And yeah, that represents really who we are as people behind the brand, the way we try to, you know, set the vibe of our team spirit, I guess. So yeah, it works.
I love the story of that April Fool's joke. How long did it take people to figure out that it was a April Fool's joke?
Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I had friends messaging me saying, "What on earth is going on? Are you okay?" I was like, "Are you serious? You really think this is real? It's the 1st of April, and secondly, I would have told you." Um, Yeah, people really, really fell for it, and that was a bit scary. We were like, "Oh god, are we gonna lose customers here? Have we taken it too far?" But we put out a statement of, saying, "We got you," like 2 days later, just to kind of nip it in the bud. Um, I think most people got it, but of course it went crazy how much reach it got, and it was getting reshared left, right, and center because it was so insane. So, yeah, lots of people fell for it.
What have been some of maybe the biggest highs and some of the more challenging moments?
Gosh, hard to choose just a few, to be honest. I feel like the highs are really high and the lows are really low. Some of my personal highs, I think going on national primetime television on Dragon's Den so early on into our brand journey is one that we can't underestimate the impact of. And I was looking back recently, through my camera roll for something completely unrelated and saw a picture of my mum. We'd like hired out this little cinema room for my family, and I had a couple of friends, and we all had a laptop so that when the episode aired, we had a different person in charge of a different thing, whether it was Facebook or the web chat that we had or whatever else. That's something where I'm like, wow, that was actually massive. That was a big deal. Our customers talk about it all the time, and we got huge amounts of reach for it and have repackaged that episode a million times into our digital marketing to great effect. So yeah, the Dragon's Den appearance was one of the earlier ones that I'm super proud of. Another one on a personal level, because I think, again, we're brother and sister, right? So we're so different. And I think I view my brother as this financier, natural entrepreneur. He had the confidence because of his economic focused mind to think, oh, I can start my own company. Whereas I'm a creative, I'm much more into words and visuals. So I probably didn't have the confidence to think that I could do something like this solo. But then when I was 28, I think, I was awarded Forbes 30 under 30. And I was like, damn, maybe I have done something amazing here. And then I think one more I would say would be the launch of our shampoo creme, the first product that we launched outside of skincare. So we were quite scared to kind of start from scratch, essentially, in a new subsection of the industry, which was hair care. And we worked on this product for years behind the scenes because, as I was referring to earlier, we wanted it to be just as suitable for someone with hair like mine, which is relatively thick and long, but ish wavy, as it would be for someone with incredibly short, fine hair or coiled, textured hair. And we'd looked at shampoo bars, but we don't use palm oil. And it was just this really challenging thing behind the scenes. And then we came up with a concentrated creme formula where we've removed 50% of the water, but the resulting shampoo has 3 times the potency. So it's the equivalent of 3 full-size bottles of liquid shampoo in one small jar. And so it represented innovation and what we stand for. It's got incredible upcycled ingredients in it. And then it's become an game-changing product for us because of its popularity. Lows, oh gosh. I mean, I think when someone chooses to leave the team, that's always kind of tough, particularly in the earlier days. Um, we have other challenges here and there with relation to the typical scaling up challenges. For example, we've recently had to pause a refill scheme option that we had available in the UK. It was a huge core part of what we do because it represented circular packaging. So our customers could return their empty jars to us for sterilization and refill. And we offered that at a 20% discount as well as paying for the shipping. And it was so popular. It was growing 20% month on month. We had lots of staff who only did refills. But as we came into this festive season, we were at absolute capacity. We'd roped in my parents, my sister, made additional hires. The place that we were doing it in was no longer suitable. We were dealing with so much broken glass and dirty jars and hairs in the hair care products, and it was just not working anymore. And we came to the very tough decision that we just had to stop it or at least pause it while we figured out a more scalable solution. But again, that then comes back to us on how can we communicate the business decision here, why we've done this, and keep that trust that we will never compromise on our values, and that getting a suitable solution back in place is a top priority for us. So yeah, that's some of my wins, some of the challenges that we've faced. A lot has gone on over the last 10 years. COVID was a nightmare. Global supply chain crisis. We're still in a recession. I could go on for ages, but I think we're proud and grateful that we have managed to make it through what has been an incredibly difficult time to start a company. We don't stop. We never rest on our laurels. We don't look at our range and think, okay, yeah, done. It's never done. We look back at, well, let's take the beginning of each year. Not only are we looking forward to what products we might want to bring out, we're looking backwards to our existing range and thinking, well, how can that be improved? What's not selling as well as other things? Are there now ingredients available in those formulations that were previously not upcycled that now can be? Can we swap those out? Could the packaging be improved? Could we get more clinical trials carried out on these formulas to prove their performance?
I know that this year is your 10-year anniversary. what has been the biggest highlight of the last 10 years?
Biggest highlight of the last 10 years. Um, well, do you know what? I don't know if this is necessarily a perfect answer to your question, but I think it's telling of how much the last 10 years means to me. I'm getting married this year in June, and I'm starting the process of thinking about my speech and the kind of, it's typical to thank people in your family in that process. And the only person's bit that I've written is my brother's, because I do think that what we've done together, and we are very different personalities with different strengths, and I think that that is our strength. But I think that what we've managed to do is quite incredible, and I'm so grateful to have a co-founder and to have someone that I can fully trust, and that has the exact same intentions as me by my side, because we're humans that have personal lives and personal things that we want to achieve in our own lives, right, outside the business. My brother's had 3 children and got married in the last 10 years, and I'm now hopeful that that chapter will happen for me, within the next 5 years, let's say. And to have created this beast, this global brand selling in 55 countries and with a range of over 30 products, and have that be with my big brother and it be a true family run situation. My parents come in all the time to save the day, as does my sister. It really is all of us. And that is what I am the most proud of, because we work so hard and we believe in what we're doing, but we can also show up for each other to ensure that our own lives are maintained and supported. Um, and kind of that balance is always kept in place. And I think that that's one of the primary reasons that we've been able to keep going and to remain passionate, right? And to not get lethargic, or to keep on pushing on and innovating and all the rest of it. You need to have your batteries filled. And for me anyway, that's something that we can do because my personal life isn't sacrificed.
Thank you so much again, Anna, for joining me today on the Greaterverse. What a remarkable 10 years UpCircle Beauty has had. Thank you to you, all of the listeners who joined today. I can certainly say that I will never look at my morning cup of coffee in quite the same way, and it just goes to show you that inspiration can turn up anywhere. If you like this episode, have a listen to the other ones, subscribe to get the latest, like, and share with anyone who needs a mood lifter. Until next time, Greaterverse, over and out.